Welcome to Windows Integrated Bare Metal Recovery, Part 2, Performing the Recovery. Windows Integrated Bare Metal Recovery, a feature of the 7.4 release, offers unified bare metal protection by enabling you to recover a Windows client from a file-level backup. This video assumes that you have at least some familiarity with the feature and that you know the prerequisites. It will demonstrate how to use the feature to recover a Windows client. This video covers the following topics: Introduction, preparing the destination machine for the recovery, running the Windows Integrated Bare Metal Recovery Wizard, completing the recovery, and additional resources. Because this video assumes that you are familiar with the feature and that you know the prerequisites, before proceeding, it is recommended that you watch the video Windows Integrated Bare Metal Recovery Part 1, Introduction to the Feature, and read the Administrator's Guide section, Windows Integrated Bare Metal Recovery. To perform the Integrated Bare Metal Recovery, you must complete these steps. Prepare the destination machine. Recover data from critical volumes by running the Integrated Bare Metal Recovery Wizard. Complete the recovery by configuring network settings for the recovered client, connecting it to your network, and restoring data from non-critical volumes. Your first step in preparing the destination machine is to access the Integrated Bare Metal Recovery ISO image provided on your Unitrans appliance and burn it to a disk if you're restoring to a physical machine, or save it to a location that you can access from your hypervisor if restoring to a virtual machine. To access the Integrated Bare Metal Recovery ISO images, mount to the Samba share titled Virtual Failover on your Unitrans appliance. Select Virtual Failover and you'll see two options. Select WinBM for 64-bit BIOS-based clients and for 32 and 64-bit UEFI-based clients. Select WinBM32 for 32-bit BIOS-based clients. After burning the ISO image to a disk or saving it to a location that you can access from your hypervisor, you should verify that the firmware interface type of the destination machine matches that of the original client. You cannot restore a BIOS-based client to a UEFI-based destination, or vice versa. You should then verify that you have enough disk space. It is not necessary for the destination machine to have a disk size that is the same as that of the original client. However, the destination machine must have enough space for the critical volumes from the original client or the restore will fail. For more information, see Preparing the Destination Machine for an Integrated Bare Metal Recovery in the Unitrans Administrator's Guide. To run the Integrated Bare Metal Recovery Wizard, you should boot the destination machine from the ISO image. You should then follow the instructions in the wizard, which I will now demonstrate. The first step is to boot the destination machine from the Integrated Bare Metal Recovery ISO image. If a message displays stating that you must set up networking to continue, or that no disks are detected on the local system, you might need to load drivers into WinPE. Click OK to allow the boot to continue. If necessary, you can load drivers as part of the next step. When WinPE boots, the first step of the Integrated Bare Metal Recovery Wizard displays. Within the Integrated Bare Metal Recovery Wizard, I must complete the following steps. Set up the local environment for the restore. Select a source and recovery point. Map the backed up drives and volumes to drives and volumes in the restore destination, and execute the restore. To begin the recovery process, you must set up the local environment to ensure that the destination machine can communicate with the Unitrans appliance that is storing the backup you will use for the recovery. Select a network adapter in the drop-down menu to begin configuring network settings for the destination machine. If it has more than one adapter, the default adapter displays first. If a network adapter does not display, this means that WinPE cannot detect one. If you're restoring to a virtual machine, verify that you have added a network adapter to the machine. If you're restoring to a physical machine, you might need to load drivers into WinPE for it to detect the network card. But first, make sure that the network cable is plugged into an active port. If your adapter is connected to the network and WinPE cannot detect it, Then you must load network drivers using this part of the screen. You can use this same part of the screen to load local storage drivers. You should not need to load drivers if restoring to a virtual machine. If WinPE detects an adapter, you're ready to begin configuring network settings. If DHCP is configured for your network, network settings are assigned automatically. If it is not configured, or if you wish to change network settings for the target machine manually, click Change Settings. Then enter a unique IP address for the machine and the subnet mask and gateway for the network. It is not necessary for the network settings to match those of the original client. The only requirement for network setup is that the destination machine can communicate with the Unitrends appliance, storing the backup that you will use for the restore. The network settings that you configure during this step are used only for the restore. They are not applied to the network adapter when you reboot the restored operating system. Before connecting the restored client to your network, you must reconfigure the client's network settings. Now select the time zone of the Unitrends system storing the backup that you will use for the restore. Click Next to proceed to the next screen in the wizard. After setting up the local environment for the recovery, you're ready to select the Unitrends appliance storing the backup that you'll use for the recovery and the recovery point. The wizard detects any backup systems and replication targets on the same subnet as the destination machine and displays them in the backup source drop-down menu. Select a system from this drop-down menu or enter the IP address for a different system if you want to restore from a system on a different subnet. If you're using replication, when selecting the source for the restore, you must determine whether you want to restore from a client's local or replicated backup. To restore from a local backup, you must select a backup system containing local backups for the client. To restore from a replicated backup, you must select the target to which the client's backups have replicated. Then select a client from the drop-down menu. Only clients with eligible backups display in the menu. Select a recovery point in the calendar. If multiple backups exist for a client on a given day, the different times for these backups display in the recovery point drop-down menu. If the recovery times do not match the backup times on the Unitrends system, verify that you selected the correct time zone in the previous step. After selecting an appliance, client, and recovery point for the restore, you must map the failed client's disks and volumes to disks in the recovery destination. If you're restoring to a new disk with existing volumes, they are deleted during the restore and new volumes are created. If you're restoring to the original disks, only the restored volumes are overwritten. Other volumes on the original disks are not impacted by the restore. It is recommended that the destination disk be the same size as the original disk or larger, to ensure that there is enough space for the data on the critical volumes. However, the destination disk can be smaller than the original disk. Before initiating the recovery, you must make sure that the disk is large enough for the critical volumes. Otherwise, the recovery will run until the disk is full, and then it will fail. Volumes are assigned numbers during the restore that do not necessarily match the numbers from the original disk. Disks and critical volumes that can be restored from the recovery point you have selected display in the source disk's volumes window in the top part of the screen. For the most recent versions of Windows, two critical volumes display: a boot volume and a system volume. For most older versions, the boot and system files are on a single volume. Some clients require additional critical volumes to boot, and these volumes also display in the drive volume mapping screen. Non-critical volumes do not display because they cannot be restored through the integrated bare metal recovery wizard. You can restore data from non-critical volumes after completing the wizard and rebooting your machine. If the recovery destination is reasonably similar to the original machine, the wizard automatically maps the backed up volumes to the destination disk. To perform the mapping manually, uncheck the box next to Restore to Original System. The wizard does not require you to select all critical volumes displayed in the source disk's volumes window to proceed, but for the recovery to succeed, you must select the volumes necessary for the operating system to boot. If you are unsure which volumes are necessary, select all critical volumes displayed in the window. You can select all critical volumes by highlighting the disk. After highlighting the necessary volumes in the source disk's volumes window, highlight the destination disk in the destination disk's window. Then click Add to map the volume to the destination disk. To remove a volume, select the volume you wish to remove and click Remove. After mapping the drives and volumes, I'm now ready to execute the restore. Click Restore to execute the restore. The integrated bare metal recovery wizard assigns the restore a job number. You can monitor its progress in the Restore Progress window in the top half of the wizard screen, or in the status screen of the appliance where the backed up volumes reside. The restore process can take several minutes. The restore completed successfully. If you restore to dissimilar hardware, you must inject drivers before rebooting the restored client. If you're restoring to the same hardware as the original, at this point you're ready to reboot. Because I'm restoring from a physical client to a virtual machine, I must inject drivers. I click Add Driver, and because I'm restoring to a VMware virtual machine, I select ESX Guest Storage Driver. I can now inject the driver into the restored operating system. The driver has successfully loaded, and I am now ready to reboot my restored client and complete the recovery. After rebooting the restored client, you can complete the recovery by configuring network settings and then restoring data from non-critical volumes. If you assign the restored client the same IP address as the failed client, the backup system treats it as if it is the original failed client. If you're using DHCP to assign IP addresses and you registered the original client to the backup system using only the client's name, the backup system detects the restored client after you connect it to the network unless you rename it. It then treats the restored client as if it is the original client. If the original client is still connected to your network, you must assign the restored client a unique IP address and rename it before connecting it to the network to avoid conflicts. The backup system now protects the restored client using the same settings it used to protect the original client. Existing backup, archive, and replication schedules for the failed client are now applied to the restored client. It is not necessary to create new schedules for the restored client. This concludes our tutorial. You can find additional information in the Unitrends Administrator's Guide, our website, other video tutorials, and knowledge base articles.